Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cuckoo. I am your host, Nay, and this is part two of the Trump National Prayer Breakfast Speech. Now, part one, I was talking about it with you, and we really got through the intro leading up to President Trump, but now we're really going to dive into what he said. I transcribed everything. I just want to double check, make sure you can see my screen. You can. Wonderful. Okay. So I'll minimize that. So, and forgive me, I keep kind of making that sound. Forgive me, I have to break that habit actually. I went through and I listened to the entire speech over and over and over again, doing my best trying to transcribe exactly what he said. I did leave out some ums and buts and ands that President Trump has kind of standardly in the way that he personally speaks, just to make it a little bit more clear to understand. But I do want to touch on some things. So, my biggest concern with this as a Christian is who is really being addressed, who is really being prayed to in all of this, which God is it, and also to address the double speak, which is very common when you listen to those in power. Any kind of politician, anyone who's rubbing shoulders with politicians, those who call themselves the elites. And I say they call themselves the elites because the Bible does use the word elite, and it is the Lord's elite, and these are not the people that I'm talking about. They call themselves the elite. They have lots of money, they're at the top, they're pulling the strings, they have lots of power. And so I want to really dive in, and I have to say the disclaimer, this is my opinion as a Christian, and this is the discernment, the gift of discernment, which I have received through the Holy Spirit. And I'm not covering absolutely everything. There's going to be a lot that I leave out because we just can't cover everything. And not everyone's at that level anyway. The Lord shows us all in our own time. And um, I don't want to confuse anyone or leave anyone behind. I'm not going to read all of this. You'll see some highlighting here. So President Trump comes onto stage and, he does say if we ever come together, it would be unbelievable. It may not happen, but it should, and maybe it will. From the earliest days of our republic, faith in God has always been the ultimate source of strength that beats in the hearts of our nations. This is plural, which I highlighted when I went through it, and it does come into play later on, which I'll cover when we get to it. But then he says we have to bring religion back. He is laying out the format and the theme for his entire speech. And his entire speech, the theme is that he has to, he says we, but I'm not including myself. So they have to bring religion back. It's not stated which religion, just religion in general. And religion typically is not just the God that we follow, but all of the doctrines of men that go into it. So as a Christian, you probably understand that religion is not the same as having a genuine relationship with the Lord. The two are very different. And so he goes on to talk about bringing religion back. And he makes some references to other people who were religious. He mentions Thomas Jefferson. And what I find interesting, where I kind of see the beginning of the double speak start, in my opinion, as a Christian, he says here, so there can be nothing more beautiful than for us to gather in this majestic place, in his majestic. That is actually what he says. I replayed it many times. That's actually what he says. In his majestic. Capitalization. And reaffirm that America is and will always be one nation under God. Now, what I find interesting is The divine majestic, actually, Paul made a reference to this, and I cannot remember which book, and I can't find it for life of me. I have even spent time on Google search trying to put in the keywords and everything, and nothing is coming back, but I have seen it because I remember how striking it was to me that Paul, Apostle Paul, referred to the Lord Almighty as the divine majestic or the great majestic, something like that. It was very striking to me. So Donald Trump said that here. Or is he talking about the Most High God, the one true God above, the Father of heaven? Is he? I don't know. And it continues on. He says here, deep in the soul of every patriot is the knowledge that God has a special plan and a glorious mission for America, and that plan is going to happen. This is what he says. He doesn't say the plan. At no point in any of this speech does he say what the plan is. But he continues to reaffirm it. He says it again, it's going to happen. Down here he says it again, it's going to happen. It is as if he's decreeing it and he's declaring it and he's making it so. And if you understand as a Christian what that means is when you're truly walking in the Holy Spirit, and the other side does their thing too through spell casting, to say a thing again and again without any opposition, then you are speaking it into existence. You have the power to do that. We have the power and the authority to do this. And that's what it seems like, but he is not stating the plan, and that concerns me. At no point there is it stated what the plan actually is. So, continuing on, and I did put some of the numbers in here, as I told you in part 1. I'll bring to your attention that there are numbers here if you choose to go in to look into it and the context. That's up to you. Okay? And so he continues on to say, today, almost 400 years after that famous sermon, we see that with the Lord's help, the city stands taller and shines brighter than ever before, or at least soon it will. And he says here, the city, he is actually quoting somebody, and I forget who it is now. I thought he was quoting somebody there. Maybe not. But he's making a reference here to the United States shining brighter than ever before. And my question is this a reference? Is this a doublespeak reference to the future of the United States in regards to maybe fire? I have to be very careful on how I choose my words here, but if you look at California, you understand what I'm saying about some sort of judgment coming onto the United States. That was what I discerned there whenever I was transcribing this. And then he goes on to talk more. He says religious a lot in this. Religious liberty. I want to point out here that religious liberty, although it gives Christians the ability, or it's supposed to give Christians the ability to, practice religious freedoms for themselves as far as how we follow the Lord and being able to openly talk about our God in public and these sorts of things. It's for everybody. It is for everybody. So this includes Luciferianism, Druidism, witchcraft, so on and so forth. So really take that into account whenever you see the word religion being used a lot by people who are in power. Then he goes on talking for a while, and here he says, I have signed. He just kind of throws this in, almost like he knows nobody's listening at this point, maybe. I don't know, but it felt very out of place whenever he said it. They have to give disclosure, and as Christians, we have to be given the choice to choose from falsehood or truth, and it has to be presented to us, and we have to accept it and receive it, spiritually speaking. But in order for that, we have to first be told it. So here it is. He says, I have signed an executive order to resume the process of creating a national park full of statues, full of the greatest Americans who ever lived. We're going to be honoring our heroes, honoring the greatest people of our country. We're not going to be tearing down, we're going to be building up. It will be called the National Garden of American Heroes. This really struck me because it has the mention of the National Garden of American Heroes, a garden, like the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. And why would it be called a garden when it's obviously a forest? A garden, is something that you very nonchalantly kind of casually walk through. Its grounds are tended by a groundkeeper and has landscapes and landscapers and all of that. It's just not the same as like a national park, if that's actually what he's talking about. But he continues here to refer to it as hallowed ground. Again, the Garden of Eden. This is a Garden of Eden reference that he is talking about. And you have to remember, you might think, well, the Garden of Eden was something holy. Well, the serpent walked in the Garden of Eden too. The serpent was also there. So we have to be very mindful. And President Trump himself at one point had stood up. He said, why are you so surprised? I told you I was a snake. He read a poem, and this was what the poem was. So we have to remember that. We have to keep it in context. And he said by that time, well, let's see, it's president's... Oh, he went on to say who he would choose to have their statue in this garden, so to speak, and it would be, his sole opinion on certain people. But he said it will be very, very built up, and this feels like a Tower of Babel reference to me, building something up in the Garden of Eden that isn't supposed to be there. Okay. He comes down further. He says, one of the incredible Americans whose memory my order will celebrate is also recognized with this statue is the Capitol representing the great state of North Carolina, and that's a man known who everybody loved, Reverend Billy Graham. Billy Graham. I know this is going to be conflicting for a lot of people. My understanding is I never followed him. I have heard bits and pieces of his sermons, but he apparently is a very well-known reverend, a Christian leader, Billy Graham. I watched a testimony on someone who was, in the coerced, I can't say certain words on YouTube. I'm sorry, forget that. I don't know how to use my phone. Can I turn it off? Nope. I'm so sorry, you guys. Stop. Okay. And so the coercive movement of peoples being expected to do desirous acts, being forced to do those things. And I heard a testimony from a woman who she said that she was one of his favorites, so to speak. And I recognize that when God's people get to good places in the Lord and they're doing great things in the Lord, they're sent greater temptations, and not everybody makes it. So I don't know. For his reputation, I don't want to say any more than that, because I don't know. I never knew him. And surely he did help bring people to the Lord, of course. But the fact that we have President Donald Trump saying that he would be the first one celebrated in that garden, and is almost like hanging a prize on his wall or on the wall of, the Luciferians, saying, yep, he was ours. We made him topple. We're like a trophy case. That's what it seemed like to me. I'm going to have to do a part 3. So I will be back. I pray that the Lord is with all of you. I thank you for listening and staying with me on this journey. Take care. Bye.